Hello everyone, and today we are going to talk about Piracy and Enter the Matrix, which was a video game that was released in 2003. It came out on the PS2, PC, original Xbox, and the Nintendo GameCube. But so I was, I was looking into, I was watching the Matrix movie trilogy again on Netflix. The Matrix 4 trailer came out, and I was kind of, curious to check out the first three Matrix films. It's now going to be a quadrilogy, I guess, instead of a trilogy now. It's coming out in December. So I checked out the three Matrix movies, and yeah, I still enjoyed those three movies. I know the second and the third one gets criticism, but I still enjoy them for what they are. They've got some cool effects, which do age quite well, weirdly enough. But also at the same time that the Matrix 2 and 3 came out, the Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions, as it was, there was a video game released at that time called Enter the Matrix. And in the video game, it ran parallel to the Matrix Reloaded, where it was from the point of view of Niobe and Ghost, who Niobe was played by Jada Pinkett-Smith, who was Will Smith's wife. So you could play the game as those two characters, and again, their stories ran parallel. They were in the movie as well, those two characters, but they had fairly minor roles. So there's a mixture of live action cutscenes and in-game cutscenes as well. Again, so there was things that were shot just for the game. So those live action cutscenes were exclusive to the game. You do get a bit of background and things. You'd find out like how they found out the machines were digging. Like you have to pick up the dead drop. Interesting, if you watch the Animatrix as well, you get to see the last flight of the Osiris. So that's where Enter the Matrix picks up, is just after that, where you have to retrieve the dead drop that tells them that the machines are digging a tunnel. So it's interesting, it goes through the Animatrix, Enter the Matrix, and then into the Matrix Reloaded. All that was kind of interesting, a bit of cross-media promotion. But anyway, how does that relate to Piracy then, you're wondering? Well, if you want to play Enter the Matrix today, the best way is to pirate it, I would say. So I looked into this, again, I was I watched the movies and I wanted to get a bit more background. So I remembered that if you want to watch the Matrix movies, in a modern day, it's pretty easy because they're on Netflix at the moment. So, just fire up Netflix and hit play and away you go. But if you want to play the Enter the Matrix video game nowadays, very, very difficult. Again, there's no modern re-release of it. It was published by Atari at the time, and Atari was owned by Infogrames at the time, and they've both since gone out of business now. So you can't get the game digitally. There's no sort of digital re-release of it. Even if the movies were out of date, again, most games consoles these days have DVD players. Still have DVD players. They'll still support DVD, even though it's pretty much dead. It's not a dead format, but pretty much on the way out. So again, you could just pop the DVD in on your PlayStation 5 and it'll play, and you can watch the movies. But again, you can't play the PS2 version of Enter the Matrix on the PS5, which is a shame. Maybe you could emulate it on an Xbox Series S or X. But yeah, if you want to play these games, it comes down to a choice between, you can buy the game. You can buy these games fairly cheap, secondhand. Again, no money goes to the publisher. But I did this on the Sunday. I watched the movies, and I wanted to play the game on the Sunday. And so if I went to buy the PC, the PS2, the GameCube, or the Xbox version, I could have had my pick because I've got all of these systems. Although the PC version is only available on CD-ROM or DVD-ROM. And I don't have one of those drives on the PC. Haven't had one of them for the last 10 years on the PC. They just don't need them these days. So that would have been a problem. So again, if you were to buy that game, the earliest delivery you could get was Wednesday. And that was like 3 days later. Like, no. I want to play it now. So if you go and download the games, the PC version was 2.5 gigabytes, and that is the footage that you're looking at, is the PC version. And we should point out that the PC version is pretty good. The PC port of this game is really good. It runs at 60 FPS, can only be ran at 60 FPS. That is It doesn't matter what you do. You can go into the INI files and change the refresh rate of the monitor. You can change the target frame rate. It will always run at 60 FPS. Cutscenes are always capped at 30, both in-game and live action. So there's not a lot we can do about them. But yeah, so ironically, for not having a digital version available, the PC version runs pretty well. The only thing we had to do was get a mod to play at 1440p. But other than that, that was it. Really, that's all it really needed. Ran fine on Windows 10 with no issues. It has no controller support. That's the only downside to it, is you have to use mouse and keyboard. You could add it to your Steam library and launch it via Steam Big Picture. Just make note of all the controls and just map them all to a controller if you really wanted to. But I was fine with the mouse and keyboard. But yeah, anyway, so we had to get the game on DVD. Again, we'd have had to, or DVD or CD. So I would have had to have bought a DVD or DVD-ROM drive, which is fairly cheap. But again, I don't want to do that just for one game. The game was fairly cheap. You know, you could get it for around between £5 and £10. So it's not really a huge cost. But again, as Gabe Newell said, piracy is more about convenience than the cost. It's just inconvenient to buy it. Could have bought it from eBay. I could have got it from CEX, but they didn't have it in my local CEX shop, so I would have had to have ordered it online. And yeah, again, I just couldn't be bothered waiting for it and then having to buy a DVD drive in order to play it. I tried GOG, I tried Steam, not available. GOG has a page for it, but it's not selling it. Again, so if the publishers really wanted you to play this game, they could release it digitally. I mean, Warner Brothers, I think it's still Warner Brothers that owns the Matrix franchise, so they could release it. You know, they could put it out there, start the hype for Matrix Resurrections, really, with Keanu and his little rubber duck on his head. Sorry. Yeah, they could have done that, but they haven't done that. Maybe they will do it, but when I wanted to play it, no, it wasn't there. So the other option is to buy secondhand, and if you buy secondhand, again, the publishers don't get any money from that. It is essentially abandonware. So I got the pirated PC version installed, the no CD crack. I would have had to have done that anyway had I bought the game, because I'm not putting in the disc every time I want to play it. That's just not, it's not convenient, really. Again, piracy is about convenience. The console version, pretty much the same issue. Again, doesn't play on modern consoles. It's not on the list of compatible Xbox games for the Xbox One or the Series consoles, so you can't play it on those consoles. So again, we would have had to either bring out your original Xbox, PS2 or GameCube, or Wii. Could have done it on that because the Wii is compatible, but again, connecting them to a modern TV is problematic. We would need to get either sort of component to HDMI converter, or that's kind of the cheap option. The other more expensive option is to get OSSC, an open source scan converter. Again, plug in the SCART cable and it'll convert it to HDMI, and that will do a bit of upscaling for you. It is a kind of scaler, and again can tidy up the image quality on a modern TV, because again, these consoles just don't do well. My TV doesn't have any analog connections on it at all. I've got a 49-inch Samsung curved TV, and it just doesn't have any analog inputs at all on it. It's only digital inputs. It's only got HDMI ports, really. I think that's the only real port it has on it there. It doesn't even have like component, the sort of 3 cable component. What was it? The YPRPB cables. It doesn't even have support for them on that TV. It's just HDMI 2.0. Not 2.1 because it's only a 60 hertz TV. 4K 60 hertz is what it does. But yeah, it just will not support older consoles. The other option is drag out the old CRT TV that I have to play older consoles. But again, I just wanted to play it. So again, the other option that we looked at is emulation. And yes, we could download the PS2. I did download all of the versions of it. The PS2, the Xbox, and the GameCube version. And I tried PCSX2. And yeah, we could do it at 4K, ran no problem on my PC. The only issue with the PCSX2 version was it kind of crashed a lot. It just crashed randomly, especially during cutscenes. It really didn't like that. So in the end, that was not really a playable option, really. The GameCube version running via Dolphin, Ran okay again, pretty good, 4K, not really any issues, but we did have, there was a few minor texture flickering issues, which it was minor issue. It's playable, perfectly playable. But I didn't wanted to try, so I tried the Xbox version. I wanted to try a different version, so I tried the Xbox version. Didn't run at 100% speed. It ran on Zemu, which is okay. It has resolution scaling now, Zemu. We'll need to do a video on that updated. But yeah, so we could run it at like 4K as well. But it had slowdown no matter what the resolution was. It's like you had the bullet time on all the time. You had the focus time, it was called. Don't know why I just didn't call it bullet time because, it was them that invented it, really. So yeah, it doesn't have. It felt like it was running a bit slow. So in the end, I settled for the PC version because that was the best version. Again, it only required minor modification. There was a resolution mod. Again, it'll support any resolution that your PC can support. It just doesn't. And it was a 2003 game, so out of the box, it doesn't support modern resolutions. It doesn't support like really high resolutions because again, wasn't really designed for that. But other than that, yeah, flawless 1440p, 60 FPS. It does have a widescreen mod and the resolution mod, and that's it. There's nothing major. You can run this game, you can install this game and just double click it after it. You could, if you wanted to keep the CD in, that is, and it'll run, and it runs fine. The game runs perfectly well. I was quite surprised at that because it's a really good PC game. Again, the only downside is the lack of controller support. But that is, again, something you can add in yourself. Again, just add it to your Steam library, add it as a non-Steam game, and then just add it, run via Big Picture, and you can then configure the controls yourself. But the mouse and keyboard controls actually work pretty well, so I just stuck with them. The combat is, it is kind of floaty, the combat. It doesn't feel like there's a huge amount of weight to it, but it's alright. Like, the gunplay isn't great. You can't manually aim. You have to rely on the auto aim. The kung fu's okay though. It's not too bad, and you do get all the sort of matrix moves. You do get your focus meter, which puts you into bullet time, so you can use that to take advantage of that. And yeah, the game it's all right. It was a kind of average game back in 2003. And here in 2021, it's competent, really, is what I would say. It's a bang average game. It doesn't do anything egregiously bad, and I think its look is okay. I'm okay with the look. It has a kind of simple, clean look to it, which I quite like, actually. Everything's nice and simple. It's aged okay, actually. Again, just for a game that's nearly 20 years old now, was released about 3 console generations ago, but it looks fine. Again, emulation lets us run it at 4K on the consoles. We're running on the PC, 1440p. Because that's the monitor that we have, again, and it looks good to me. I think it looks okay. So there's no real issues. The live action cutscenes just look a bit weird because they're at an odd aspect ratio. They look kind of a bit squashed. But other than that, it's okay. They run fine. So that's surprising to get a game from that just running so flawlessly. So it really deserves kudos for the PC port. I don't know what it was like at the time because I never had it on PC at the time. I had it on the PS2 at the time, back in the day. But other than that, yeah, it's pretty decent. So is it okay to pirate the game? Well, I would say it's the best way to play it, really, these days. Again, we've talked about all the hurdles that you would have to overcome to play it on the console. It's not an issue of cost, though. If this was on GOG at a reasonable price, if it was, say, £10 or something on GOG, I'd have bought it, downloaded it. Put it on GOG, somebody. Somebody at Warner Brothers, surely. There's free money there. Why not put it out there? And Path of Neo as well, which was kind of the follow-up, if you will, to Enter the Matrix. It's kind of it just follows, you get to play as Keanu Reeves. You get to actually play as him. Not like in Cyberpunk, where he's just a character in it. So maybe they'll look at reviving it because, the Matrix has undergone a reboot. The Matrix Rebooted, that would have been a better name for the Matrix, because it is essentially, it looks like a reboot of the franchise, really, there. So yeah, it would be a better name than Resurrections, I guess. Matrix Rebooted, that would have been so much better. The Matrix Collection Rebooted, there you go. HD remake, there you go, that's what you could call it. if they released it. But yeah, overall, it's a pretty decent game. It does give you a bit of background story if you want a bit of background story into The Matrix Reloaded. And I think it was quite a cool idea at the time, quite a novel concept to give you a little bit of, a little bit of, because movie license games just tended to follow the plot of the movie, whereas this is a background. This has its own plot. You kind of have to watch the movie and Enter the Matrix and play Enter the Matrix to get that. Whereas watching the movie was really easy, playing the game isn't. So that's what I mean. That's what I mean about emulation. Technically, it is piracy, but it's about preservation. Again, Warner Brothers don't really care about it. They don't really care. The publisher of the game, the developer of the game, I think is long gone. Shiny Entertainment. I haven't heard anything from them. I don't know if they're still around. But yeah, so the publishers and the developers have long abandoned the game. You're not really stealing it from anybody. Then people come up with arguments. Oh, but you wouldn't steal a car, would you? But then it's not really the equivalent of a car, because you're downloading a copy of the game. You're not getting a copy of the car. Because yes, if someone's selling a second-hand BMW and I go and take that BMW from them, that's theft, because I'm preventing them from using that BMW or selling that BMW. But if I just download a copy of Enter the Matrix, yeah, you could make the argument that I'm taking away a sale from someone selling a second-hand copy, but I'm not stealing from them. That's not stealing. That's not theft. They still have their copy. They can still sell it. I mean, okay, they maybe sell it for less and it's took away a potential sale from them. But then again, that isn't theft. So I don't see it as stealing. Anyway, emulation in particular is preservation. Because again, I wanted to play it. And there was plenty of options out there for me. The best option on a modern system was either to pirate the PC version or to, again, get an emulated version. I do have a copy on the PS2, I should point out. So I could have dumped the ROM, but that takes too long. DVD drive, again, I need a DVD drive to dump the ROM. But again, a download, it's only like a 2.5 gig download was the PC version. So, I mean, I downloaded all the versions of it, all four, in about an hour. It took about an hour maybe to download them in total. Maybe, and I think they were about 2 or 3 gigs per download. So it didn't take a long time. It's the most convenient method, the path of least resistance we took. And that's generally the best option. And that's what Gabe Newell was hinting at with his point on piracy. It's not a problem of cost, because I could have bought all the versions. It would have cost me less than £20 to buy all 4 versions, or 3 of the versions, because I already got one. But yeah, because it's usually around £5 to £10. It's not a particularly desirable game. It's not a particularly rare game. Enter the Matrix, so it is quite easy to get a hold of. But like I said, it is it is something that's the path of least resistance, and I think you're going to take that, and most people will take that. It's technically piracy, but in this instance, we're not stealing really from anybody in this sense. It's a harmless crime because we want to play it. Again, if the publishers, if the owners of the IP wanted us to play it, why not put it out on GOG? And I would buy it. I would happily pay for it. But anyway, that is all for this video. So thank you for joining me, and we'll see you again soon, and goodbye.